Yo people, welcome back to On Track GP, your host to do the most and never coast, Matisse in the building. Now, we're here to talk about my favourite driver with also by nature my favourite team, Hamilton and Mercedes, and potentially will he leave at the end of the season, at the end of his contract which is running out, to Ferrari. And the topic is also being covered by Planet F1. Link is in the description to that article. Make sure you check it out. Now, I'm going to go through some quotes to start with and give the context of why this situation is even apparent and why it's even happening. And then we're going to dig into whether could become reality at the end of the season. The quote from BBC's Checkered Flag podcast did the rounds on social media and F1 communities last week. Last year, I told them the issues with the car, and I've driven so many cars in my life, so I would know what the car needs and what the car does not need. I think it's about accountability. It's all about owning up and saying, yeah, you know what, we didn't listen to you, and it's not where it needs to be, and now it's time to get to work. These were the quotes that came out from Lewis Hamilton, obviously now in his second season where he'll feel like he's not really given the opportunity to compete for this title, and Ferrari have leapfrogged. We saw that last year. Now Aston Martin have also leapfrogged. We're seeing that in Bahrain. Mercedes are now the fourth fastest car on the grid. That is a problem for a driver that is coming towards the twilight of his career, that is looking to secure the record 8th World Championship. He's not going to be able to do that in a car like the W14. We've seen that in Bahrain. We saw it specifically when Alonso blitzed past Carlos Sainz to go into the podium positions, and when it was opportunity time for Hamilton to get into that position and leapfrog Carlos Sainz, he was unable to do so in that car. George Russell also struggling to get past a wrist injury with Lance Stroll, who had a really good race, but you would have assumed and expected in years past that this would have been no problem for the Mercedes car, but they did not get it done. Now, this begs the question, will he be there at the end of the season? Ferrari knocking on the door potentially if Carlos Sainz does not step up to the billing. I've watched Carlos Sainz last year, many years now, and I do have question marks over whether or not he can win a world title, whether or not he can even be leading races consistently and handle that type of pressure. It's a different type of pressure to lead a race and have potential former world champions right behind you in your rear view mirror. It's not easy. Now, last year was a difficult year to judge, of course, because there were reliability issues from Ferrari. They also had terrible strategy as well, and they've now changed principle, and this season they'll be looking to do much better. It was a tough start in Bahrain with what happened with Leclerc, but he is clearly, for me, the number one driver at Ferrari, followed by Carlos Sainz, and that's where this position could potentially open up. Now, this is the first time we're seeing a little bit of friction in the Mercedes camp in terms of Hamilton and his words and his comments in regards to Toto Wolff and his leadership of the team, and potentially the strategy that they're undertaking and the science that they're going with in terms of why their side pods look slightly different, why they're going with their model and not moving more to a Red Bull type model. It would be humble pie to have your car look even remotely similar to the Red Bull model, which is clearly out in front and doing very well. There's been some jokes and memes flying about that Aston Martin are very similar to that Red Bull car, but they're also off to a strong start. So it's a difficult situation, and I feel like George Russell, of course, will have that patience. He'll still be frustrated that he's left Williams and thought he was coming into a title-winning team and is now struggling in these positions where he found himself in this race in 6th, 7th even. But you know, he'll have that patience. He's a lot younger. When it comes down to Lewis Hamilton, that patience is not potentially going to be there. Now, there's a lot of history with these two. Obviously, Hamilton and Mercedes has been together for a very long time, ever since he left McLaren. But it is always a dream for a Formula One driver to drive for Ferrari. They're by far the biggest team on the grid in terms of history and in terms of pedigree and in terms of pressure. And if they show that this season their car is closer to Red Bull, they may not win a driver's championship. I don't think they'll take that off Verstappen. But if they can take a constructors championship and if they can have consistent performance from both their drivers, then I think that will prove that, you know, this car could potentially be a lot closer to giving them a world championship than that Mercedes car could get to. What changes will be made by Mercedes coming up in the maybe 4th, 5th, 6th race in terms of the upgrades, the changes? This is maybe just the prototype of the W14, and now we're going to see the final form in a few weeks' time or in a month's time. That could maybe sway Hamilton as well. And Carlos Sainz's performance is, of course, crucial to this, because if he does not put in the consistent performances, if he does kind of finish in these positions where he's being overtaken by Alonso, maybe even Stroll in future races when he's really fully recovered from that wrist injury, then his position will be potentially really, really under scrutiny, because there's a lot of pressure at Ferrari, and like I said, they demand the highest and highest of expectation. And Lewis Hamilton will be the front runner. He will not go to Aston Martin. I cannot see a world in which he goes to Aston Martin. One, because there's no way the dad is sacking his son. There's no way the dad is removing his son from position. Stroll will be the second driver to Alonso, and Alonso will be there. He's only just signed. Red Bull, that is not going to happen. There's no way he's going to Red Bull with Max Verstappen. Even if Perez and Checo wasn't to, do the job, do the business this season, and his position was to, again, for the second season running, be under some sort of threat, I'm sure they would look to alternatives. There's just no way he's going to drive for that direct rival, that Toto Wolff to Horner. There's just no way that's going to happen. And that's it, really. There's nobody else on the grid that you can really look at and say, this is a worthy seat for a world champion of Lewis Hamilton's caliber. And on top of that, the wages as well that he's going to command. McLaren are nowhere near it. And Alpine, well, there's just no way that's going to happen. So for me, Ferrari is the only realistic seat where he could actually potentially sit in. Again, it does depend on performance for Sainz. It depends on performance and upgrade for Mercedes. But Mercedes are under pressure because it's the first time now that we're really seeing they're not leading. Mercedes have been clearing it for years and years. They've been dominating F1 for so long. 6-7 years in a row they were dominating with Nico Rosberg, with Lewis Hamilton, with Bottas being a great second fiddle driver to Hamilton as well when he was collecting his world championships. Now they're finding struggle with these new regulations, with the massive overhaul of rule changes last season as well. And now it's given opportunity for other clubs, other teams to not only close the gap, but to also overtake. And that's exactly what's happened. So we're going to see now if Mercedes can respond. I'm going to be watching very closely not only them and their upgrades in future races, but also Carlos Sainz in that Ferrari seat, because he will be the one that potentially loses out in all of this. So we're going to keep a close eye on it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below in terms of, will Hamilton believe in? Will Mercedes actually, in this upgrade, come closer to the top of the grid? Will they get back ahead of Aston Martin? Will they even be able to close the gap on Red Bull and Ferrari? And also, let me know what you think about Carlos Sainz. Is he good enough to sit in that Ferrari seat? Is he good enough to lead Ferrari to potential, Constructors' Championships, World Championships from a driver standpoint as well? Let me know what you feel and think in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to On Track GP, and I'll see you guys next time. In a bit, people. Peace.
Oh God, McLaren!
He's gone.
He's been in the pit 40 seconds!
Whoa.
Front wing! Careful with the front wing! God!
Matisse, it's happening, mate. I'm putting on my lucky new Ferrari hat.
Oh no!
Oh, Sainz!
Leclerc.
It's Leclerc.
Oh,
Drama.
no. Take that out.
Leclerc.